Welcome back everyone, Laure here. Splice just made it to the quarterfinals. We'll talk about that a bit later because I'm standing here with Chachi, and you know, sometimes in League of Legends you don't get to play the game, and I feel like this is what happened here.
Yeah, someone had to be the sacrificial lamb, and it was me this game, and I think we got out ahead from that because we fell really far behind in the early game, and by sacrificing we could get Humanoid ahead, and I think that was good.
Right, tell me about it, because 16 minutes in, there's a 3k gold lead on Fiora. There is absolutely no way you can match her on the side lane, so talk me through the steps for turning things around here.
Okay, well basically it started at like 3 minutes for me, when Kobe said that he can't really play the game anymore, so I just offered the swap, and we kept swapping around, so we funneled a bit of gold into him. And well, I had to be sacrificed, but the thing is I'm a GP, and I'm fine with low resources because I still have the ult anyways, and I can farm up later, so in the end it turned out good.
Tell me about the pressure during this game.
Well, it was pretty high because we got behind, and we wanted to win this game, obviously, and we needed to win this game, and it got a bit rough, but I think today we were unbeatable.
Now, tell me. You qualified to Worlds when no one believed in you. You made it out of groups and qualified to quarters when we also stopped believing in you. So tell me, Chachi, how do you feel right now?
I feel awesome. But anyways, we always believed in ourselves. And I think that's what matters the most. Because as a team, we knew that we will come in victorious today. We came in with the mindset on stage that we will be victorious. And I think this showed off in our gameplay.
And you're going to play a tiebreaker for first or second place. Against the winner of the next game, so whether it's going to be J-Team or FunPlus Phoenix, who would you like to face?
I think at this point it doesn't really matter because we just wanted to qualify, and we will see whoever it is.
Congratulations on that, and thank you for the interview. I'll see you a bit later today, and back to you guys.
Yeah, Laure said, I'll see you a bit later today, implying that the tiebreaker would be won by Splice. So, okay, wonderful to see Chachi like this. We've talked about him a bit today already, but for a player who fought to get to Worlds for so long with the Unicorns of Love and now it's Splice, to get this and a lot of it being off the back of his performances also today, you know, we're going to discredit that leading phase of the last game, must be wonderful.
Yeah, it's so great to see Chachi for his first time on the international stage after trying for so many years. The fact that he's able to come up here in group stages and have the best performance that he's had in a very long time is great to see.
And the message coming out of the camp just looks so positive right now. They're saying, we don't really care what the analysts say. You know, we're going to go in and we're going to play our own game. And I think that as one of the veterans on a young lineup, having that quiet confidence goes a long way. Absolutely.
Also, you know, putting the eggs in the basket of Humanoid, saying, we trust you to do this. Now, in terms of the stakes for this next game of J-Team versus FunPlus Phoenix, basically, it's an elimination game. Woo! If FPX lose, they are out. If J-Team lose, they are out. Whoever wins goes up in a tiebreaker for first place versus Splice. What is going on in this group?
How do we get here? Am I still sleeping?
What's happening?
So,
don't ask me.
It has been crazy, but there are a couple of things that we need to take into consideration. The first one is, in week one, stylistically, we talked at the top of the day how J-Team came in with an advantage because these teams were not good at playing around mid lane. And FoFo is what makes that team so good.
Yeah.
The second part, and the part that we're now seeing in this week, is teams' ability to grow and adapt. And something that Splice has showcased is their issues were very obvious, but they were fixable. Whereas other issues in terms of what happens if Doinb isn't able to successfully roam around the rest of the map? What happens if FoFo isn't able to get a lead? And what happens if Levi cannot get ahead? We saw all of those things happen this time around, and it's making things a lot harder for the other teams.
Yeah, and I think that this game ultimately is going to come down to which mid laner gets to play their style of League of Legends, whether FoFo gets to isolate that mid lane and go to work on Doinb, or whether it is going to be the open up map, get Crisp, get Tian involved, and start running around as those three-man death squads.
Yeah, I think it's impossible for this to be isolated. I would love to see FoFo put onto his LeBlanc and to challenge Doinb into the mid lane. I think what's going to be happening is you're going to be seeing the Goon squad. For sure, you're going to be seeing top jungle support find their way through mid lane and try and get Doinb ahead. What I love, because you being able to hit on the point of adaptation throughout the entire group, they're able to, J-Team in particular, are willing and able to pick up fights in the early game, and I think that's really helping them out.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that what we're seeing today is that mid-game execution needs to be really tightened up from both of these teams, because if you make that mistake, there are teams that are willing to play a little bit slower. So the pressure becomes on FunPlus. If you do make that mistake, how do, you're going to allow J-Team back in to capitalize?
Yeah, because we just saw the last game from FPX, and it was massive coordination issues regarding how the Galio ulti was going to be utilized. The moment he was completely shut out of the play, they still went for a bottom lane play with Chris. So they need to get this stuff kind of sorted out, because that's what made them LPL champions. And now they're one game away from being kicked out of Worlds.
Yeah, let us talk about that then for a second. You have these two teams, first up, first seed, coming out of the LPL, the region that is currently world champions, heralded for their individual play, and they just running over you, now in a big stumbling block. And on the other side, a J team trying to get that glory for the LMS.
It's a strange situation that we find ourselves in right now, and for me, FPX have showcased good individual performances, especially in the form of their jungle and support, and I think that in this matchup, Crisp is someone that I once again look at to kind of be part of the linchpin to help FPX come out clutch.
I completely agree, but I think we have to start looking at pressure. J-Team came into this tournament, and people were really expecting not all that much from the LMS. A chance to get back into those quarterfinals would really cement them. They have the whole region behind them. LPL fans are pretty savage from my experience with LPL fans, and right now, FunPlus would be feeling the wrath of all their supporters. That dreaded first seed of the LPL supposed to be coming in with world champion contention. They would be very nervous taking the stage as a young team.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mention it, because the first seed from the LPL always seems to struggle when it comes to group stages. They're either getting knocked out here or they're getting knocked out in quarterfinals, but the first seed always seems to be the one that struggles, Raz.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to see, and I think in this case in particular, if you isolate the FPX's situation, is that you have a lot of young players coming into this one. Players that don't have that international experience. If I look at LWX in particular, and we've seen what he's able to perform throughout the entire group, I haven't even seen a fraction of what he was able to accomplish during the split. And I hope that at least in this, theoretical last game, for both of these teams, that they couldn't put their all into it.
Yeah, if he doesn't win here, Doinb could be doing nothing. And I do want to center things around this mid laner, because he is so important for this lineup spawn. You had a bit of a monologue earlier in the day as to, no, that was actually about FoFo, but that is why this is so important, because Doinb is finally at Worlds, and LPL fans as well as fans around the world expect so much from him in this squad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when you have a look at Doinb and how he's been able to come into the World Championship this year, this is what the LPL fans have wanted for so long, Raz. Yeah. From QG Reapers the whole way through. This is a guy that they've lauded as maybe the savior. He's been able to do it at Rift Rivals in the past. He needs to do it now. Because
he's probably the most unique person, a superstar in a lot of cases, that when he gets put in the highlight, that he is more of a supportive position. So you get put on tanks far more often. He puts the onus on other players around him. I think that when you are in this position, I want to see a carry performance out of him. That, a lot of the players around him to prop him up.
And I love that you mentioned that, because for me, Ryze is the pick that can take Doinb into the quarterfinals. I think it is something that he has defined a lot of his career on, and I think that this is the game where he can get the advantage over FoFo, and if he can just get his hands on that champion, that is how he can take FPX to the next.
That's the case that we haven't seen from Doinb in the tournament, is that throughout the LPL, he's had multiple games where he's had 40% damage percentage off of either the Victor or, you're right, the Ryze is a great example of that. That would be fun, harkening back to the Rift Rivals play that he had.
And I'm going to pull up your predictions that you made at the beginning of the day. And I know all of you predicted FPX to win this game without any of the context before we saw any of these games. And I can imagine that even with everything that FPX has kind of let people down in this day, it is still very hard not to vote for them because of what they showed in the LPL. So do you all stick by that?
So I'm going to stand by my FPX vote, largely just because I think the problem for J-Team is they only rely on FoFo. And I think that the jungle and support
hasn't been such a resounding success for everyone, but we'll see what they go here for a first pick. It might be for GimGoon that Renekton in the top lane.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. GimGoon at the moment has been struggling in a couple of matchups. However, when he gets a Renekton, is able to play a little bit more of that strong side position. I think that they need him to have a carry performance because Rest on the gangplank actually had a fairly good game when J-Team were popping off.
And I'm going to cut you guys off. Thank you for jumping in, but our casters are going to take over from here.
They say that they're tossing.
Well, we're definitely going to try to. Yes, we are now here. Thank you very much, Shocks. I'm joined by Frosk and Jap, as per usual. They talked through the first set of
There we
bans.
go.
Renekton is the first pick here for FunPlus Phoenix, and the Gragas is the next lock-in.
Thanks for the handoff, guys.
Yep.
Well, we were just actually discussing this. I was looking at the bans from J-Team, and while we're very used to seeing Pantheon, Kiana, and Kayle, there's actually not that high of priority on a Kiana from FPX comparatively to other teams in the tournament. So I actually find it really curious that J-Team decided now, of all times, to make sure that the Kiana was taken away.
And surely we see the Ryze.
Yeah, you got to see
The
it.
fact that Kiana was banned instead of Ryze is a little shocking to me. The fact that there is a Kai'Sa on J-Team with the Xayah ban will be nice for Lil V. And FPX still hasn't gone for the Ryze. There it is.
There we go.
We have the... I shouldn't call it the LPL special because it's now kind of like the global special, but this surely is a staple of the LPL. The Renekton, the Elise, it means that that dive top lane is incoming. It means that Tian will be visiting GimGoon up there, and you really have to prepare what is Rest going to take to try to survive such a potent and threatening Renekton Elise topside.
Well, at the moment, it doesn't look like they're going to pick anything for top lane. It's the Azir locked in for FoFo. So we have jungler, AD carry, and mid laner for J-Team. FPX locking their top side of the map down. Still looking for that bottom side after the second ban phase.
Yeah, FoFo going a little bit late game. So the early pressure will be on FunPlus Phoenix to try and make this one work. And I also like the fact that they're continuing with their marksman bans down towards LWX.
And I also like the fact that it feels that J-Team know that they're against an LPL team. Chances are there's going to be a lot of team fighting, so build a composition on a comfort, but also the ability to look for those late game team fights. This is the pressure scenario where lose here, go home. You don't typically chance that on early game compositions. You usually want to bring your late game insurance policy, because this is when teams start to feel that caution take over.
Especially since early game leads haven't been indicative of winning games this tournament. We've seen a lot of people have a lead at 50 and have a lead at 20 and then have the game swing round at them as the match progresses. So with the Gangplank and the Gnar band away here by FPX, they're trying to get rid of some of those safer top laners for Rest, as we know that Elise Renekton combo is going to go up towards top.
Yeah, even though GimGoon has played a lot of weak side top lane, you're expecting them to want to play through them here. And the Ornn is a pick we saw used by G2 against Griffin to try and neutralize some of that early Renekton power. So again, J-Team looking to play for the late game.
Yeah, and the thing about the Ornn is it's just very difficult to dive. Elise and Renekton get a slow push, a big wave crash comes in, and you have to play it picture perfect to get around that tankiness and CC.
Okay, so I know a lot of people at home will be saying Tahm Kench. I don't like Tahm Kench, but I listened to an interview from Frosk about LPL teams and their Tahm Kench Varus bot lanes. And I want you to break down why this could be an aggressive lane for FunPlus Phoenix.
Well, because you use the Tahm Kench to dive towers. One of the things is the tools that they have to reset tower aggro through the Devour as well as the Elise E, her ability to repel up there. And that's typically what you see from this composition. This is about Doinb having access to that ultimate. It's about running down to that bot lane for the Tahm Kench and the Varus who control the wave and then slow crash it as Elise comes flying out of the woodwork and you got 16 people under your tower.
You promised it to us now, Frosk, so if it doesn't happen, we know who to blame. Pyke is the final pick here for J-Team.
Yeah, and there's a reason this is only the second Tahm Kench we've seen in Worlds. He is at potentially his weakest point as a pro support, maybe ever. The fact that he can't move that quickly once he devours an ally, can't flash during it, has much less damage, he isn't that as good of a duelist. There's a lot of things that have been taken away from him, so he's really just going to have that tower diving ability and that global map stuff. Outside of that, he's fairly limited.
And I was going to say, and then on the other side, we did have that Pyke lock in, so the ability for Pyke to just peace out. She says, okay, the lane's getting dove, that doesn't matter, I can cause chaos elsewhere on the map. Team up with this Gragas and try to find some sort of pick, but I look at J-Team's composition and I still feel like even though they have the tools that they could divide and conquer, they still very much want to stay grouped up.
One team left for both these teams to prove they belong at Worlds. One map left. One more time onto Summoner's Rift. The loser goes home. The winner plays a tiebreaker versus Splyce to see who gets out of this group first.
And it's pretty incredible to think that this group has come down to this. FPX was coming in as a top 3 team in the world by most everyone's ranking, the #1 team in the LPL. 29-4 was their game score during the regular season. The question wasn't would FPX advance, it was would they lose a game? And now we have a little bit more time to talk about the stakes here as we have a quick pause at the start of the match.
Just to quickly go back to LPL and FPX's dominance. For the European fans, I'm going to assume it's a bit of a European-skewed audience. They play twice as many games, and they still won more than G2. They were that much more dominant. They were like 0.7% off the winningest record of all time in the LPL. The record is still held by OMG of 2014, but FPX were the dominant frontrunners. They conquered everything. They kicked through LPL.
And they kick through RNG and IG on the way. Coming from the region who currently hold the World Championship, FPX were expected to dominate and destroy. And now they play against J-Team from the LMS, a team that perhaps people didn't really expect to make their mark, a region that people thought was underpowered coming in to this World Championship.
Yeah, I mean, considering what happened to the LMS last year where we had Flash Wolves make it into a tiebreaker, not advance, and then the other 2 LMS teams go 0-6. And then we saw Flash Wolves lose many of their players and coaches. I mean, in fact, Warhorse, Flash Wolves' old coach, is the head coach of FPX now, to give you an example of how many Flash Wolves players ended up in the LPL. But J-Team was really the #1 team remaining in the LMS and just didn't have that many expectations. The fact that they've walked in here actually beaten FPX once already, if they were able to knock out and be the final blow to the #1 team from the LPL, that would be big.
It's a grudge match. It's the fact that the LPL has cannibalized the LMS, taking their star players, their star coaching staff. J-Team themselves have lived in the shadow of AHQ and Flash Wolves for so long, finally getting their Worlds debut. We saw them kind of peek their head out at things like Rift Rivals, but it's been such a long time coming for FoFo and the boys, as they're lovingly called. And so if you go out like this, this would be the time to do it, to leave it all on the court.
Got to put all on the Rift for this game. We're going to jump back on into the action. Not really much has happened at level 1. A couple of wards will spot people out. But early doors, don't really expect any heavy level 1 invades from either of these teams.
Yeah, and we got to pay a lot of attention to the early jungle pathing of Tian on Elise, because his first gank, especially when he has 2 lanes, one of Ryze, the other of Renekton, that gank combo is lethal. That's why you see FoFo bringing Cleanse and actually an Aftershock on the Ornn to try and potentially give him just a little bit more durability in the event he gets ganked.
That's also why the vision that J-Team have secured onto Tian's red buff is so important. They'll have information that Tian has started the top side of the map, and then now try to figure out what they're going to do with this information and how they're going to change up the pathing.
And right now, both of them just starting on the top side of the map. FoFo trying to trade with Doinb here, but expectation is that that top lane will push in for GimGoon. Ornn really doesn't have the best of pushes early on and can't match a Renekton in the early stages of the game.
And I want to draw our attention to the mini-map right now. You can see multiple blue pings on Gragas right now. Both junglers know where they're pathing. It's assumed that Gragas will go red, Krugs, Raptors, reset for Predator boots. So Tian's got some windows that he can play around.
We'll see if he's able to find a window that is open enough for him to slither his way through and find one of those early ganks, get one of his lanes off to an early lead. Bot lane is pushing in for FPX, and with a Varus, you always expect them to have some wave control.
We have some adaptation happening right now. So GimGoon, because the pathing was pinged out and it's so common from Gragas, has now moved into the jungle to place a ward on Raptors. Meanwhile, because Crisp and LWX have push priority in bot lane, Crisp has also walked up and placed a ward on the blue buff. Tian can now either gank this Azir in the mid lane or actually go and try to contest the Gragas' blue buff.
Yeah, and we've seen this type of jungle pathing from FPX already today. They were doing it to Xerxes. It's just a matter of what they can do with it. Can they convert that into a big early game lead? Because now he's looking to contest the Wolves, waits for the cooldowns, now he's going to try and steal.
Wolves in the way for that cocoon. He steals away one of them. Actually, I think Hana got that.
Yeah, with the Talisman Burn.
Cocoon doesn't connect. Tian's just going to try and take away this big one. Gets it with a smite. That makes it a lot harder for him to actually fight over the blue buff, but his team is on the way to try and help him out.
Yeah, FPX are just going to fully muscle Gragas out of his jungle there. The push priority in mid and bot lane, that ward that Chris played down earlier. This is bleeding Gragas out.
And if there was a way for FPX to try and regain their form, it would be with 3 pushing lanes and trying to steamroll. So you can see they're taking full advantage of their push prio mid and bot to try and deny the Gragas as much as possible.
Hook does connect there in the bottom lane, but you see the power of Tahm Kench with a quick devour. LWX is fine, and now Tian maybe even looking for the gank down towards this bottom lane.
These are the dives we talked about. They know Hana has reset. Yes, they see him on a ward, but there's not much J-Team can do. They could potentially teleport the Ornn down if they wanted to try and stop this, but look at how much denial there already is on this bot lane.
Hana is on his way, has the Predator. You can see Koala's taking just a little bit of damage. Tian's going to try and get away, but the flash comes in, the repel is up. Can Tian get out of this one? Chris flashes forward for the Devour. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Ornn is beating out GimGoon in the 1v1. Hana locked up with his cocoon down towards the bottom side. First blood comes out, and GimGoon with a great flash escapes in the top lane.
And everywhere else, if you see a Varus and you see a Tahm Kench, you're like, no, it's a defensive bot lane. They're just going to push waves back and forth. Not LPL Tahm Kench. They use it to dive towers. They use it to be hyper aggressive, and it's just like that.
I mean, they might want to just stay here. They know that rest is low, and using his teleport top, so no one can actually come down here to help.
Koala lands the hook, gets the aftershock, but you can already see Tian once again with the repel up. Chris will use the thick skin. Tian comes down, and that's 2 plates already taken off this bot lane tower. 2
plates and first blood to Varus. It's a 700 gold lead at 5 minutes for that bottom lane, and it's not like they lost out elsewhere to do it. The whole time, Hana was down there, not getting experience, not getting gold. GimGoon actually was able to take the top Scuttle Crab because he knew no one had been top.
It's also 2 missing flashes and 2 missing TPs on these top laners. So both junglers can now choose to go and attack that top lane. In fact, you can see Tian scuttling his way there now.
On his way up towards the top side. Has got his jungle camps there as well if he just wants to clear those out. But as you said, Frost, very easy then to gank and Ornn without his flash. Chris comes up towards mid just to help Doinb push this one out. And you expect, well, Doinb should back and try and get those first completed parts of his items pretty soon.
Yeah, and FPX starting this game exactly the way they would have wanted. They didn't come into the game the way they would have wanted, but there is still a chance that FPX can get first in this group. Remember, the winner ends up playing a tiebreaker with Splice to see who ends up at #1. And the loser, their World's run will be over.
Small thing that I wanted to point out there, but it didn't actually hurt Doinb, but with Chris walking into his lane and taking, I think, 3 creeps of experience, he actually was behind level 6. Now, he managed to get level 6 off of the final minion, but there could have actually been a very obnoxious window there where Doinb was stuck at level 5 because his support stole his EXP when he was trying to gain priority. So we'll keep our eyes on that if they continue through this tournament and that ends up biting them in the future.
At the moment, not really costing them too much. Tian able to use the push pressure they have in this bottom lane to secure the Cloud Drake pretty darn easily. Not going to be spotted out by J-Team at all. And early doors, FPX have total control of this game. Leads in the bottom lane, even in mid, even in top. And with a strong early jungle here from Tian on the Elise.
Yeah, ends up burning a lot of his resources in order to secure that Cloud Drake. It is a bit of an investment for later because it lowers his pressure for a potential repeat dive on the flashless Koala, but can understand why he would want to make that call, since that kind of means now the next dive will probably be a 4-man, knowing that Doinb is level 6.
Yeah, and he'll have his teleport back available for him, which is why I think that it's fine to invest those resources, like you're saying, into that Cloud Drake, because you are just kind of waiting on more key cooldowns, the 2 TPs on your solo lanes before FPX feel confident to pull the trigger again, because they're just flat out winning down here.
Yeah, the thing is, right now, how often do FPX need to actually pull the trigger? They can just put the threat in, and you're then getting probably another plate in this bottom, maybe even 2. Tian, as he puts the control ward in here, you'll see J-Team, Koala, and Lilv really have to back away and respect the fact that a dive could come in.
Yeah, even just placing the control ward and leaving immediately just sucks everyone on J-Team down, because they say, we can't just let them keep diving us, surely. 3 plates already gone in 8 minutes, and here he is just pushing through. FoFo showed in mid. Tian then went into the triangle brush.
And Crisp and LWX are pushing
seen this
very
before.
well. We have Hana on his way, trying to protect the tower. They're not really going to be able to get too much more out of it. Hook looking for it, but already Lilv's dead. I did not expect him to die that quickly. Crisp takes the kill. Koala follows. Doinb joins from the mid lane with the Realm Warp, but really J-Team can do nothing about this. The pushback with the Emperor's Divide will keep FoFo alive just for the moment, but the Tahm Kench is on the chase and Doinb is looking for it as well. Flash away from FoFo. FPX are opening up this map beautifully.
And this was the expectations for FPX, just frankly making it look very easy. They casually walk up to the tower, they nail all their cooldowns, they just delete people from the map, and they continue to just hard win these lanes. Look at the CS differences opening up virtually everywhere. Look at that jungle CS difference.
Blade of the Ruined King completed at 9 minutes for LWX. I mean, there's a chance he could get 9 or 10 plates himself. They're actually going back down bottom lane, clearly wanting to repeat these dives, but if they get another dive and another 2 plates, they'll still have enough time to go get top. He could definitely run away with this game, as he did so many games in the LPL.
So consistently a key carry for this team. Rift Herald still 30 seconds away from spawning as well, so maybe even looking to take that tower before the Rift Herald spawns, then go up towards the top side, try and take that objective and open up more plates for themselves. It's a 3,000 gold lead for FPX coming up towards the 10-minute mark. And they are looking very in control of this game. Rest trying to trade onto GimGoon, but really isn't going to be able to do too much to force the Renekton out of the lane.
It's actually going to be very scary for J-Team to try to engage on either side lane, top or bottom, because Doinb's flash is now, or excuse me, his teleport is now up and available. It's certain that J-Team were keeping track of that, because now Ryze, not only with his Realm Warp, but also with his TP, can just throw a wrench in all of those plans.
Yeah, almost all of the gold lead for FPX is concentrated on jungle bot support. So even though Tian is top lane, kind of collecting experience right here, I would wonder how quickly he's going to get down to the bottom side, as he did with the Cloud Drake, where he kind of just spent his advantage on securing the objective. That's what it looks like he's doing with this Rift Herald, knowing the Dragon is still down for another minute and a half. They have pressure in the bot lane so heavily that is kind of making sure Hana has to be down there. Look, Gragas just is afraid of where Tian could be, so he's using this pressure to just basically take a free Rift Herald.
Doinb doing the same there, using his teleport to get to mid to make sure they could push the lane out, so they couldn't have a quick rotation. Hana coming in here, good explosive cast, LWX able to dodge away from it, but here gets the Streamer Shuffle, and Koala's already killed LWX. Doinb's going to open up from the side, Crisp flashes away, but J-Team find a fight.
Yeah, find the mistake of LWX in his positioning, just because Tian, like you said, cross-map, taking the Rift Herald, so they still trade across map in terms of objective, but that was a misposition by LWX.
Yeah, I think that's a very big mistake. They shouldn't be attempting to get river control when their jungler is taking the Rift Herald. So they're going to get plates out of the mid lane, but a lot of LWX's advantage was handed back there.
I mean, but they might even just take the whole tower here.
They have such a lead already.
Yeah,
like they could have done this regardless of whether or not they went for the river.
I totally agree with you there, Jat. An unforced error by FunPlus Phoenix, but they're so far ahead that perhaps it won't matter in the state of the game. 4,000 gold up 11 minutes into this match. They are in dominant fashion.
And having the mid lane tower kicked in like this makes it that much easier for Doinb to threaten bot side dives. There's some wildness happening right now.
Yeah, I think the thing with LPL teams especially is sometimes they thrive in the wildness. Like having a few of these skirmishes, having a few mispositioned fights can be just their style generally. It's what China has always been known for. Dodge away there by LWX towards the bottom lane, and this is going to be the second Cloud Drake as well for FunPlus Phoenix. So they might get, well, they'll probably get the tower and get the Drake at the same time without really sacrificing too much.
Yeah, this will be 10 plates just between mid and bot lane. Top lane still completely full, so probably not going to get more than that, but just really extending their lead. But
again, perhaps an unforced error. Tian's just overstepped now. The teleport's coming in, but perhaps that's a little bit too late because all 5 members of J-Team are here. Chris stepping forward, GimGoon pops the dominance, the Realm Warp coming in as well, and look at the damage from the Renekton on the back line. Here comes Doinb, LWX outside, Lilv able to dodge away. Hana is the first to fall. Doinb rattling out the spells as now FoFo's forced down towards the bottom side of the fight. He uses the Emperor's Divide, but all he does is push FPX across the wall, and now Koala's going to try and dodge away. Doinb looking for the damage, can't quite land it. The hook connects onto Chris, but then he dives in, he goes gold, and Doinb takes the kill onto Koala, and FPX come out on top in the fight.
Great bait by Koala, and that's one of those jungle invades where you're just asking the other team to fight you. Because you're 2v5 at the start of that. J-Team should try and fight that in most situations, but they are at such a large deficit. Like, you're thinking, what is this Elise thinking? There's a control ward in this brush, there's no blue, he dies. But then all 5 of J-Team are there, and because Doinb, GimGoon, and LWX have such giant packs of gold, they win.
Oh, imagine being Lilv in this game.
And
like, who can you lane into?
remember, this is an elimination game as well.
Yeah.
J-Team would be a win away from making the quarterfinals again for the LMS, but they have been absolutely decimated by FPX's 3 winning lanes and ability to push the tempo.
And it doesn't get better for J-Team for a very long time with the tools that they have on their comp. This is a extremely dire circumstance and dire situation. We kind of talked about it briefly in Champion Select, that you have this Pyke here, and yeah, he can kind of piece out and try to attack side lanes, use that mobility, use that damage that comes into his kit, but who does he really team up with? He's got an Azir who's frankly kind of hard to move around. He's got the Kai'Sa who is frankly terrified for her life, or he has an Ornn who's a tank.
And he dies so quickly that he's gone for a no magic mantle as his first part of an item here on the Pyke. Not even going up towards that Duskblade first off. FPX, 7,000 gold in the lead at the 14.5-minute mark. You've got Blade of the Ruin King and Zeal complete on LWX. The Spear of Sojourn already there for GimGoon. And Doinb has got both of those stacking items, Catalyst of Aeons and the Tier complete on the Ryze.
And FPX has accelerated this game so much, I watch them walk through River and think, ooh, I wonder if they take Baron. And then I realize we have to wait 5 minutes until it actually spawns. This is a 7,000 gold lead. A mountain will spawn before that happens. So this is the type of game that FPX is going to hope to win before 25 minutes.
I'm going to say this very loosely. They'll probably take Baron. Like, spoiler alert, but I have a feeling FPX will get the Baron as soon as it spawns.
It's definitely possible, unless they've closed out the game before them. J-Team will be hoping that is not the case. As you said, Jat, so they're playing for their tournament lives here, but
yeah,
it's just difficult to see them coming back when when FPX is so far ahead this early in the game with a comp that scales relatively well as well.
Yeah, and FPX is going to want to do everything they can to end this game quickly because they have Splyce up next. The winner of this game will face Splyce to see who gets the #1 seed in this group. We know Splyce is already 3-0. We know FPX has looked inconsistent. So getting back to the fundamental things that made FPX win the LPL is what they're trying to do in this game.
They're kind of just asking J-Team to come and try and defend this tower in the top lane. Will be the third to fall for FunPlus Phoenix. 3-0 so far. 7-2 on the scoreboard and an 8,000 gold lead at the 16-minute mark.
I will say this of J-Team's composition because they have so much wave clear built in with a single pick like Azir. It is decently easy for them to stall out the game as long as FPX don't attack multiple lanes and try to tear this Azir around. Now, That said, it's actually really easy for FPX to attack multiple lanes with those semi-global ultimates in the Realm Warp and the Abyssal Voyage. So J-Team have tools to stall, but FPX also have tools to run them over with.
I did get a confirmation from our stats guys. If FPX win in 39 minutes, 16 seconds or less, they get side selection for the tiebreaker game.
That's very important because we talked about this earlier. Splyce have been banning Kayle from both blue and red side, which can really hamper them in drafts. And you can see what happens when FPX gets some of these signature champions like the Ryze.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to get a bit of ahead of ourselves because it looks like FPX is crushing this game if they don't make a big mistake, but the fact that when these two teams have played each other, just having access to a first pick Xayah is so huge. Or even if they trade Xayah, but it gets Doinb Ryze. Because if it's the double Kayle ban for Splyce on red side, Kayle Pantheon, they don't have enough left to actually deny FPX their bread and butter. Will be very interesting if we get there.
Definitely will. J-Team trying to try and stop it right now as Hana jumps in onto Tian, but Tian does still have the repel, I believe, and can go towards the blast.
Oh, he wasn't close enough.
But here comes the TP. GimGoon's going to flash in. Straight into the middle four. And Koala is just deleted. And here comes the Ornn. Rest trying to do what he can, but Doinb is on the back line now. Hana is shut down. Oh, sorry, that's GimGoon going down, but Hana will fall as well. J-Team trying to flash out of the back of the pit, but Tian is there waiting with open arms. Rest trying to run away, dodges away from the cocoon. The Tahm, Kench, Abyssal Voyage is going to chase them in, and that's another kill to Tian. FPX are cleaning this one up. All 5 of J-Team fall in exchange for just 1 of FunPlus Phoenix.
And that's how it's done? As Tian just gets cornered in the Drake pit, but again, it just leads to a total just massacre of the team right there. So you could see how far ahead GimGoon is and how willing he was to jump in there to burst and how far behind J-Team are. That's now an over 10,000 gold deficit before 20.
And they got the dragon.
Of course they did. Why not?
Just the cherry on top right there as we take another look at it. So Tian was trying to get to the blast cone, I believe, with this repel so we could get over the wall. Just short right there. And then it just turns into, okay, we're dogpiling in, guys. Let's go. You see the TP come in from Doinb and that absurd damage from GimGoon.
The unassisted 100-0 burst on the flashless Pyke. And then Tian is the one who ends up being the cleanup, the guy who started all of it. So another 1 for 5, and things are looking good for FPX to not have the total disaster, right? To not be the #1 LPL seed that doesn't make it out of groups, not going full LGD. They still have a chance to be the #1 seed.
And you look at that and you're probably avoiding people like the SKTs, like the G2s of the world in the quarterfinals, which of course gives you a much greater chance of making it further in the tournament to those semis and the finals. Of course, the rest of the groups play out across the next 3 days, so we'll see exactly how they shape up. Today, Group B, I think, has surprised a lot of people. And maybe we'll see more surprises this weekend.
If today's any indication, you can't just see what happened in week 1 and say, yeah, that'll happen again.
I can for G2, Jad. That's the important.
Oh, yeah, for them, of course. Obviously, it's exactly the same will happen again. That is where we are.
Yeah.
So,
well done.
11,000 gold lead for FPX at the 20-minute mark. That Baron is coming up. Maybe they'll want to take it before they end out this game. They are splitting in mid and bottom lane right now.
I mean, they could decide that the only way J-Team get back into this game is through a Baron steal, and frankly, FPX don't really need it to win the game. They have so much dive threat. Or they just rock up to it and they say, you have to face check it.
I guess their only real problem is they don't have a true tank. The Tahm Kench can tank it for a little bit, but the Baron does still do quite a bit of damage. And so if FPX started up without proper vision control, they could lose out.
But they're actually so far ahead of the clock in terms of their itemization with the Mountain that, while I understand what you're saying, that a team in a different situation might take a lot more damage, I think they just burn through it.
Makes sense. Here comes the Realm War behind them. Hana trying to get onto that front line, but already he is down. Doinb going in for Koala, gets stunned up with the Phantom Undertow, but now FPX will turn their attentions towards that back.
Yeah, that'll probably do it. They got rid of the J-Team Control Word, they got rid of the J-Team Smite. It is technically possible to steal it with something, but as long as Tian has his executes down, he can take it. Not to mention, they don't need everyone. We know GimGoon and Doinb can just fight the rest of them.
Yeah, right now, that's exactly what they're doing. The Baron goes down, GimGoon's gonna kill off FoFo. Just 2v5 them. FPX are too strong. J-Team, you tried your hardest, but FPX are not getting knocked out today. They will take the Baron and look towards breaking open this game.
They have so much gold.
Yeah, 16,000 gold ahead.
I'm just taking this in a little bit. This is the fastest game. We've had some stomps. We got SKT over
We've had 24-minute games,
I mean,
think,
this-
so far. G2 against HKA, I think, was pretty quick.
This feels like it was over on the initial tower dive.
Yeah, but it's the fact that they've accelerated so quickly. It is so hard now to really assess the strength of FPX going into their next game against Splyce. Splyce undefeated on the day. FPX lost to Splyce, but their performance in this game, I think a lot of it does have to do with the fact that they were able to get winning champions in all 3 lanes, and then also a great turret diving jungler. That is something that Splyce cannot let happen in their tiebreaker game for first. But FPX really just, this is like the new textbook. The textbook League of Legends is to do it much slower. This is the FPX
The
textbook.
Spark Notes.
Yeah, the FPX textbook is, okay, so 3 people take Baron, the other 2 fight the rest of them. You never write that in a how to close out games in League of Legends textbook, but it's what FPX is doing.
It's brutal to watch. It feels like the beast, to quote Azale, really has awoken with this FPX. It's now kind of the level of consistency. I do want to point out, kind of in those last replays, LWX still hasn't had the best positioning despite being 6-1 and 7. It really has been on-point devours from Crisp to keep him safe.
Doinb is going to clear out this top lane. Rest of his team are in mid, and FunPlus Phoenix are truly arisen from perhaps the ashes of their first few games performances here. Challenging Splyce for that #1 spot. Doinb is pushing in top still as the minions are on the tower. The Predators are not going to be able to find an engage, and J-Team starting to lose their base. Here comes the call of the Forge God from Rest. Last chance saloon, you have to feel. Only hits 1. They've landed onto Chris. But look at how tanky he is. Serena Shuffle comes out. Already FoFo's down. And the dive onto the backline from GimGoon is massive. LWX is dominating. There's 3. There's 4. Give him 1 more. GimGoon's on the chase. Hana's trying to run away from this. But he is running away from his base. He is running away from the game. And FPX are looking to close it out.
Yeah, and that is all she wrote right there. FPX have steamrolled this game from minute 1 with those tower dives. They have kicked through the door, and they are taking the Nexus.
In dominant fashion, FPX prove they are here to party. The LPL's #1 seed will be playing in the quarterfinals.
A 21,000 gold lead by the time they kill the Nexus, less than 24 minutes into the game. It isn't the 6-0 a lot of people were expecting, but they still have a chance to get that #1 seed. Splyce is up next in the tiebreaker.
And Splyce will have watched that game probably hopeful at the start, and then seen how much domination FPX had, and maybe now a little bit scared about facing a team just that strong in a tiebreaker.
I mean, we have one of those situations right now where you have momentum for both squads. You have FPX, who just absolutely dismantled J-Team walking into this tiebreaker, and then you have Splyce with the confidence of their streak in week 2 as well as going through FPX. So we should see both teams on their highs.
Yeah, you can see FPX doing the quick bow at the front. Their focus is on the next game, and for J-Team, the disappointment ends up setting in. They had the chance to knock out the LPL 1 seed. They were 1 win away from advancing to the quarterfinals and also having the same chance to fight Splyce for that #1 seed. So as we have the victory on one side, there is always the disappointment and defeat on the other.
And that's always the comparison that you see at Worlds, and it's why Worlds is one of the best tournaments, in my opinion, to watch every year, because you see the heartbreak and you see the elation, and it's always not enjoyable to watch, but it's always a very emotional time.
I mean, to be frank, though, after G-Rex, Mad, and Flash Wolves just kind of collapsed last Worlds, to be a single game away from knockout stage, I think already the LMS have done much better than previously. It definitely doesn't feel that way right now. This one will sting because they were so close, but I think given perspective and given time, that conversation should start to change.
Yeah.
It definitely should. We'll see if it's able to change, perhaps for some of the other LMS seeds that we do have in the other groups. They still have some chances to fight back. But for now, coming up next is our tiebreaker game between FunPlus Phoenix and Splyce with the first seed on the line. Don't miss it. Can Tian get out of this one? Chris flashes forward for the Devour. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Ornn is beating out GimGoon in the 1v1. Hana locked up with his cocoon. They're not really going to be able to get too much more out of it. Hook. Looking for it, but already Lilv's dead. I did not expect him to die that quickly. Chris takes the kill. Here comes Doinb. LWX outside. Lilv able to dodge away. Hana is the first to fall. Doinb rattling out the spells as now FoFo's forced down towards the bottom side of the fight. And here comes the Ornn. Rest trying to do what he can, but Doinb is on the back line now. Hana is shut down. Oh, sorry, that's GimGoon going down. But fall as well. Right now, that's exactly what they're doing. The Baron goes down, GimGoon's gonna kill FoFo. Just 2v5 him. Last chance saloon, you have to feel. Only hits one, they've landed onto Chris. But look at how tanky he is. Serena Shuffle comes out, already FoFo's down. And the dive onto the backline from GimGoon is massive. In dominant fashion, FPX prove they are here to party. The LPL's #1 seed will be playing in the quarterfinals.